The Mariana Islands are irreplaceable. The air, land, and sea areas are important to all people of the Marianas, including members of the United States military who call the islands home. For decades, the Mariana Islands have provided a safe training and testing environment for the military. The islands are an ideal setting because of their location in the Indo-Asia-Pacific region, allowing the military to maintain a global and strategic presence. In 1944, the United States liberated the Mariana Islands from Japanese occupation. Since then, the military's presence in the Western Pacific has been vital to supporting World War II, the Korean conflict, the Vietnam War, Desert Storm, and operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. The islands and its people have also supported humanitarian missions and provided relief and shelter for refugees and migrants. The Mariana Islands Range Complex. Here, personnel from the United States Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard train as realistically as possible, so they are prepared when called upon. Every day, the military ensures the United States, its territories, and the environment are protected and safe. Military personnel need to train as realistically as possible to maintain readiness. New technologies also must be researched, developed, tested, and evaluated to ensure they are thoroughly tested and can do the job. Military tries to maintain access to ocean areas whenever possible while ensuring public safety at all times. To detect and counter hostile submarines, the Navy trains using both passive and active sonar. Much remains to be learned about our ocean environment, including how sonar affects marine species. To minimize impacts, the Navy works closely with the National Marine Fisheries Service, and while training and testing at sea, the Navy implements a number of mitigation measures. Some measures include monitoring for marine mammals and sea turtles before and during training exercises and testing activities, and reducing or stopping sonar use if the animals are sighted within certain distances.
Well, we're putting forth the effort to make a better Navy. Compared to back then, things are changing. There are more regulations, restrictions, but it's shaping up for the better. It's a lot cleaner Navy. As far as the environment goes, we are putting money into research.
The Navy strives to minimize impacts on coral reefs by conducting pre-landing surveys prior to amphibious operations and participating in the U.S. Coral Reef Task Force. Onshore, the military has programs to protect threatened and endangered species, control invasive species, and protect cultural and historical resources, including ancient Chamorro, Spanish-era, and World War II sites. The military is committed to protecting the island's natural and cultural resources and heritage, and strives to minimize the effects of its training and testing activities on the environment. Testing and training are crucial. What we do here makes the United States, its territories, and the world safer.
Oh, and then fade into the sunset. Good job. Okay. Dude, I hate that part. So right when they're like, the Marianas Islands have been a safe place and provided so much safe area for us to train. And it's like, that's so contradictory, because it's been a safe place for you guys to train, but you've made it very unsafe for everyone else who lives here.
Haven't we moved on to the point where we're using simulation in a war scenario? Why can't you, I mean, I understand that the whole idea is as realistically as possible, right? It's all about readiness. And so you're going to contaminate all our water and our land at whatever cost for the purpose of real life training. But my issue is, why can't you do real life training on your home front? Last time I checked, you guys have water, right? And you guys have a huge expanse of land. But the idea that we're the territories and that they have free range to do whatever they want, because obviously California would complain, why are you testing realistically in Yosemite Park, right?
Remember when we saved you guys in World War II? Because what does liberation have to do with the MITT? Well, it's to remind us, Chamorros, that we're super indebted to them. And if they hadn't saved us, we wouldn't have all the wonderful things that the military has brought to us since then. I like how they failed to mention that after World War II, when they secured their presence here, it's been really beneficial for all of the other wars to follow that, like our involvement in Vietnam War, in Korea conflicts, and for humanitarian issues. But they failed to mention the huge impact it had on us, right? All of the displacement of our people, then like eminent domain seizing land from like where my tata and all of his family was up in Retidian. And it's like, it's supposed to seem like this really seamless transition. Like, we saved you from the Japanese, and then all of a sudden we're in like 2016, and it's like, look at all the things that us saving you and, us, restoring your island back to peace has done for us and the world. Just like, okay, it wasn't that simple, but whatever.
I like how, like, for combat and civilian, like, evacuations, or for combat specifically, like, it's just some still photo of, like, a guy, like, in a helicopter. Whereas, like, for humanitarian aid, they have, like, some brown child and, like, a soldier, like, wrapping her head in a bandage. Like visually, that kind of just, like, they're definitely downplaying the whole fact that, like, the whole purpose of their training is for war, is for violence, is to, like, go into a war zone and, like, be prepared to, kill someone. But yeah, they downplay that a lot. That's interesting.
Okay, so that's where this is the part where they're transitioning in the video. They're saying, like, we make sure that everyone that's affected by the areas that we're training in is safe, specifically the environment, right? Because that's the whole point of this. Is they're trying to package the information in a way that we're not worried about the environmental impact that they'll have. But the actual impact statement, like for the MITT, specifically allows them to damage, up to 26 square miles of coral reef. It allows them to detonate, like, I think the number was around like 18,000 detonations per year for 5 years. And then it also allows them to take like 80,000 plus species, over 26 different kinds of species, during their testing. So it's like, okay, if your impact statement allows you to do all of that, I'm not really like convinced that there's going to be no damage at all, that everything's just going to kind of be smooth and safe. The military has never recognized the importance of public access to previously private indigenous land. And they use that language of sharing, right? The military shares this land with residents and tourists. That's language that totally erases indigenous ownership, right? Because, like, the Chamorro people aren't residents of their land. They didn't come here to live here. They own this land. You don't share anything with us. We share it with you. And it's super, dismissive of, like, the people who have been here and who have ownership of this space. And specifically the Chamorro people who were displaced after World War II, right? When all of those land seizures happened. And they're capitalizing on that language of, like, this was what you owed us for us kind of saving you and civilizing you after World War II, and we still care, and we still, like, allow you to sometimes have public access to your lands. And it's so stupid. It's like, how dare you, like, throw that language back in our face? Oh.
Interesting when they talked about cultural significance and natural resources, and then when they say archaeological sites, that's a picture of a tank. Like, most of the archaeological sites, like, under threat of their presence, especially, like, the firing range, are, like, ancestral bones. Like, that's interesting, the image that they decided to use as a war tank. As if that's, like, our only, like, the biggest part of our history, right? That's interesting. Okay.
They are not committed to protecting anything. They're committed to relocating all of the things that matter to us culturally and historically, putting them in boxes, and maybe sometimes letting us have access to that when it's on their terms, right? When they have time for it. But other than that, it's like, screw you, right? Because after all, you wouldn't be the wonderful, thriving people you were without America. Because after all, Chamorro history starts and ends with the US. I hate this. And you know, the whole video is really just them talking about the precautions that the military takes when they're doing these testings and trainings. But it doesn't actually give you the hard data of like, hey, in the past when we've done similar testings, this is what's happened. I like how they conveniently leave out like the Navy testings in Honolulu Bay in Hawaii, you know, an environment that at least is similar to compared to ours. But they're not going to talk about, you know, the Agent Orange that's still on Guam. They're not going to talk about how, you know, they still have toxic sites that they haven't even cleaned up on our island. They're going to talk about their intentions, right? Like, this whole video is about how the U.S. military has the best of everyone's intentions. And because they can say that they didn't mean to hurt anyone because they funded all this research, if anything does happen, it's like you can't say anything because it's like, oh, we put it in our impact statement. We already accounted for the thing you're complaining about. So really, you can't hold that against us. It's like, dude, F you guys. F this, dude.